Okay, welcome class of 1970, Saxons. This is the South Salem High School reunion video. This is Andy Tillman speaking at the moment. And we also have with us today Alan Schiffer, who is in charge of the reunion. And
Actually, that's not true.
We are interviewing today Laura McCallum, whom I'm sure all of us remember from the class of 1970. Laura has been teaching at the, is it the Spec School, Laura? Spence School in Manhattan for almost 20 years, and has taught sculpture for 30 years and been a fine arts, visual arts department director. By all accounts, she is living her dream. And I don't think that would surprise any of us who knew her when she was a young woman at South Salem. So Laura, without further ado, can you describe what your career has been like the last 50 years? And those of us who have not been following you on Facebook, can you let us know what types of art you've been engaged in?
Sure. I left South Salem. I think I chose a college on the basis that I could go overseas sophomore year rather than junior. It was, we choose colleges for all sorts of right and wrong reasons. So second year I went overseas to France and Italy. And then I transferred almost immediately after that to go to a school that was strong in arts, Scripps College in Southern California. And then I spent the next few years, I did a lot of traveling, a lot of wandering. After college, I went to Japan and to teach English. I didn't join the company that wanted to hire me because I found the working conditions were horrible. My plane back landed in Seattle, so I landed in Seattle and eventually went to graduate school there. And at that time, I met David Grinstead, who 4 or 5 years later, we married. And then after graduate school, I was 26. I was lucky. I was actually hired to teach at PLU and taught there until they offered me a tenure track position that scared the hell out of me. So I moved to New York. And from that, after being a professor, I was a bartender for a while. I worked in the gallery. I painted apartments. I did faux finishes where you make plaster walls look like marble walls. And during that period of time, which was like when New York I moved, I was 29. Excuse me. I also had 2 children. And so I have a son, Nicholas, who's now, gasp, 36, and a daughter, Eve, who's 34. Nick lives in New York and he is a true New Yorker. He doesn't even have a driver's license, but which you don't need in New York. I haven't had, the only car I ever had was, I bought a 1951 Chevy pickup, which was oh so cool. I liked the idea of having a car that was older than me, but I sold it when we moved here and I haven't had a car in 40 years and I've been here almost 40 years. Eve is living in Paris. She went there right after college with a Fulbright and she never came home. She's done graduate school there. She's getting a PhD now. And she's a French citizen. So she has, it was lovely. This Christmas, she was able to come to the United States as American and she went back as a French person. So it was really wonderful to see her. After having kids, for a couple of years, I just worked as a mom for 2 or 3 years. And then I sat down and figured, like, what do I like to do? What can I do? I have to work. David was a writer. And I think at that time, the average income of a writer was $5,000 a year. So it was completely important for someone else to be working in the house. He worked also as a bartender and he was at this bar that was famous called the Algonquin bar, where all the New Yorker writers went to. And he had, I mean, it was a great bar for a writer, for the people he met, which included Ella Fitzgerald was there, and Dick Cavett was there, and Edna O'Brien was there. And so it was one night he came home and he said, it's like having a salon, except I don't have to pay for the booze. So he did that. And I just sort of said out loud to someone, I really like teaching. And this woman next to me told me that the school where my kids were, it's a Quaker school, was starting an art program, summer art program. And there's a long route to where I got there, but I very rapidly was made director of that. And then from there, they hired me to teach sculpture. And so I was there almost 10 years. And then in that period of time, David died. He was, he had an Agent Orange cancer, and which took him in about 3 weeks' time.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a very tough period, and not made any easier that a few months later I got cancer, and but I've survived. And fortunately, it was a lethargic cancer. I've been 25 years now cancer free, but it was a very trying time because kids were little, and partly because of troubles at the Quaker school I taught at, and partly because I had to look forward to educating 2 kids, and college is expensive. I moved to the Spence School. They offered me a position as the head of the department, the visual arts department. And I was there for 19 years. All during this period, I've been making art. And like writers getting about 5,000 a year on average, so do sculptors, sometimes even less. So I've always had to work, but I've done large scale sculptures. I've done public sculptures. I've also did a lot of flat work in the last 20 years. I just finished 3 pieces that I shipped off to France for a show that should be opening. Well, it's gone from November to January to late January to early February to late February to early March, late March. So who knows when it's going to open, but the work is there safely. And there will be a show. Who knows if there's an opening, but that's the last piece that I did. So that's in a nutshell, 50 years.
Well, you've had an incredible life and career. From Facebook, it looks like some of your flat work actually looks like fiber art. Is that true, or how do you do that?
When I had a sabbatical in France in 2017-18, and I worked, I wanted to do things I'd never done before, because I strongly feel as we age, the more we sort of push ourselves to new things, to put ourselves in an area of discomfort, the better for our bodies, souls, minds. So I took printmaking, and I'm not a printmaker. You have to be meticulous when you're a printmaker, and I am not. So I did that, but I also had an apartment. It was a lovely apartment that I got through, get this, Tom Haley's wife's brother's ex-girlfriend had an apartment.
It sounds very French.
So it was thanks to Tom Haley, I got this lovely apartment. It was on the location of the last execution, the guillotine use in Paris. That after that, they built an apartment, I was in it. But I couldn't really work as like a normal studio because there was so much apartments. So I did work that ended up using gauze. And in fact, the work that I sent to France also uses that. So there is fiber art. And throughout my career, I've sort of gone back and forth with fiber art. After David's death, I didn't do any work for about a year. And when it came back, it was just a cathartic thing that I was literally making things that looked like mummies and wrapping them like mummies that were fiber art. And it was also that year, the third blow was because they took so many lymph nodes out in my surgery, I was told I couldn't lift heavy weights again. And of course, for a sculptor, that's difficult. So I've had to rethink of how I make sculpture as a result. And so I went to fiber. So yes, and I did a whole series with fiber. I'm doing something downstairs with fiber. It's
Well, what is next after a 50-year career? You strike me as someone who is not going to retire.
no, I'm not going to retire. What I say now is I've left teaching, but I haven't retired. That's a really good question. I think I'm going to go into painting again with the idea of trying something new and different and something I'm not comfortable with. If you look at my art, if you look at my website, there's a lot of monochromatic work. So to go into an area of discomfort, earlier this year, just about the time COVID hit, and I got it too, I was invited for a show in a new museum in Greece that was called 35 by 35 centimeters. So it's like 14-inch square. And they wanted me to give them a work of art for the show, which I said, easy, even though I was sick, because I had things on paper. But then they sent me the canvas, and I hadn't worked on canvas since I was in college. So so this was like, oh, not only do I have to do this on canvas, I have to learn how to do it on canvas. So I think I may go back to that and try, but just work with color. I'm uncomfortable with that. Work on canvas. There's a lifelong process and learning. But I don't know what the next thing is. I've been fortunate having these 2 shows this year to sort of get me through COVID. The one thing I do know, having had several times in my life where I had to stop making art, I used to get so anxious about, will I ever have an idea again? And what I know now, the value of being older is I know I will. And I know I will go on to something else. I just don't know what it is right now. And I don't know what the venue will be, but I don't want to make art just for myself. It has to go out there somewhere. So,
well, it sounds like you're open to possibilities. Was
yes.
this at all anything like what you thought you would be doing when you were a young woman at South Salem?
No, because I don't know if you recall, but I had the brilliant idea when I was maybe not in South Salem, but 18, 19, that why retire when you're old, when you can't move around very much? Why don't you retire when you're young? So my idea was not really to start a career till my mid-30s. In a way, that's exactly what I did. And I wanted to travel. There was at one point I wanted to learn 5 languages. I've learned 1 extra and half of another. So I've got things there, but I didn't know what I was, I had no idea.
It was before the term Gothic came out, but I recall you as being artistic, and I wasn't at all surprised when I learned that you had made a career as a well-known successful artist.
Well, yeah, it worked that way. It worked that way. And what I've also found is I have to make art. It's not a choice. Yeah. So I do it.
Do you have a particular memorable recollection of your time at South, an event or person or teachers?
Well, teachers, there are a few teachers that I thought were, for me, very important, who it widened my world and deepened the value of curiosity. And it was Mr. Whitman was one for sure. Mrs. Smith, and then Mr. Birch, remember social studies?
Sure.
I loved the fact that at the end of the year, I could not tell whether he was Democrat or Republican. He questioned constantly. And so those 3 were pretty important to me. And Miss Klippel as well was another one.
Yeah, Mr. Whitman, I sure remember fondly.
Yes. Yeah.
Alan, how about you? Was there anyone in particular that you recall?
Oh, I think certainly Mr. Whitman would be one of those. I think he challenged all of us in a very kind but challenging way, right? And I think we were all lucky to have, different people. I enjoyed Mr. Frame from the choir teacher, not because I was a singer, but because he gathered people together so well. And
That's
I
true.
pulled you to want to do something together. Actually, I enjoyed Mr. Edgar because I think he brought a certain challenge to our school as well. So anyway, I think we were fortunate to have
Yeah.
all overall. How about you, Andy?
I would say of that group, Mr. Whitman, as you know, I didn't come to South until halfway through my sophomore year. And what impresses me most about my time at South Salem was that how welcoming it was. And I came from a little town in Northeast Oregon with 900 people in it. All of a sudden, I'm in the second largest high school in the state of Oregon. Instead of having 30 kids in my class, there were 750. And for some reason, I ended up being student body president. So, I don't remember mean girls, bully boys. South Salem blew me away. I think I was so terrified going from a class of 30 to one on 2 shifts that I overcompensated by being gregarious, which by nature I'm really not. But I just have very fond memories of South and the people there. They really treated me with kindness.
Mhm.
Pretty amazing for a high school.
Yeah, one thing nice about a large high school is you can find your group. And in a smaller place, you might stand out as the outlier, someone that doesn't fit in, but there was always a group to find yourself. And sometimes I remember some students where the group was two really close friends that might have been considered strange to everywhere else, but it was just, they fit in and it was great. And so I have a lot of fond memories. I remember one night with Tom Haley, I'm trying to think who else was there, and we probably destroyed a neighbor's hedge. We found that behind his house there was a steep cliff and a hedge, and if you leaped on the hedge as you ran down the hill, it would fling you back and then forward and fly you off into the street. And I remember that like it was yesterday. It was such a great experience. And we were just being just sort of kids. It wasn't, there was no pretense. It was just having straight fun. Why the owner of that hedge didn't come out and scream at us? Because I remember going away and seeing this sort of divot, it's like destroyed. But things grow.
Yeah, I think Tom Haley brought that out in a lot of people too.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah, still does.
Yeah, well, hedges grow and so do people.
Right.
Do you think would you have recognized yourself today if you were back 17, 18 years old, or do you think you ended up the right place?
I ended up in the right place. And I always was interested in getting out and exploring. In my travels, I'd rather go to a place where they don't speak English, where I'm the real foreigner. So that kind of makes sense. I think of the things that were important to me back then. I remember going door to door to try to save wild rivers in Oregon. And those sort of things are still very important to me. So and my values are pretty much the same. I've been fortunate in a lot of ways so that I didn't have to compromise my values. Sometimes life turns on you and you have to, but I haven't had to. So it's lucky.
Well, I'm not surprised that you ended up becoming an educator and a teacher. I think a lot of us saw that potential in you as a young woman. And Alan, we're kind of at the end of our 30-minute recording here. Do you want to bring folks up on what we've scheduled for a delayed 50th reunion? I don't know whether this makes it a 51st or a 50th. What have you got planned for us?
50 plus 1. Well, let me just real quickly ask you. So, Laura, if we as we have a reunion, what are the kind of things that you would like to? What would cause you to want to come to a reunion?
Well, actually, I was planning to go to the last reunion. In fact, Tom Haley and I both were. And then I got invited to an artist residency in Wyoming where everything was free. And I sort of went there. And I can't remember why Tom didn't. And I've talked to Sally Merck about going there. I mean, it would be great just to be able to talk to people and see where they are and sort of look face to face. I've seen a few of us, but not many. I'm a long way away.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think I appreciate what you're saying in terms of just seeing folks. And we have a lot of history, and it's fun to hear the different stories of how we got from there to here, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we have a great kind of a core group of Saxons that are kind of helping reorganize this events, and includes lots of people you would know, from certainly Phil Stradle and John Ross and Leonard Goldsmith and Ed Whipple and Lisa Steves and Patrice Curry is continuing to provide leadership as she has in the past too. So so I think it's a great group, and we're trying to figure out what makes sense for everybody when people will be comfortable in what we can do, and that's been easier said than done, as you might all expect. But we tentatively have a September 18th date set, and we will be held at Gilgamesh, which is a wonderful local place in Salem that Lee Radke owns, and so it's nice to have that class connection, and it's a wonderful place, and I hope everybody can make it. So we'll definitely be getting the word out.
And thank you very much for setting this up. I know it's not easy.
Well,
Particularly now.
well, I think we want to persevere, because I think, just like you said, Laura, I think it'd be just great to see folks. So I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, Laura, for sharing a glimpse of your fascinating last 50 years. And Alan and I will, I think, be next on the chopping block. I can't believe that you stayed in an apartment where Albert Camus probably saw the last execution during the Algerian War. So this conversation will have to be continued.
The last
And-
guillotine. The last guillotine.
Alan, and thank you very much. And I guess go Saxons.
Those Saxons.
All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
Hope to see you soon. Okay. Bye.